How can you make it illegal to access something you've already been given access to, just because you don't like the way that they access it? So yes, this is going to be part 2 of our coverage of Yount v. RIAA, a case up in the Second Circuit. And this is again about that horrible law called the DMCA, which they want to use to cut off fair use entirely. The catch-22 is, you can make a copy without authorization as long as your ultimate use is fair. If it falls within fair use, if it's not an infringing use, then you can do it. Well, what they want to say is that, but you weren't allowed to access it in the first place. So if you're a YouTuber and you want to make a reaction video and you want to download the video you're reacting to play clips of it, that is a fair use. But if the RIAA has their way, then you downloading that video would be criminal, punishable by up to $500,000 and 5 years in prison for the first offense. I asked in part 1, how could you possibly justify that? So now we're going to hear from the RIAA and hear what they have to say in their filing. And we're also going to look at an amicus brief from the Copyright Alliance, and we'll see what the justification is. So we'll start with the RIAA's reply brief. It's a 68-pager, but we don't need to go over anywhere near all of that because they were actually nice enough to summarize it in just a few pages. We'll have to skip ahead a bit, starting on page 21 here. But if you thought that in part 1, if I was in any way misrepresenting what the RIAA was saying, just listen to what they say directly. According to Yount, the typical way that users watch music videos on YouTube is to visit the URL for a particular video and then push play on the YouTube video player. Yeah, so what? A lot of my responses to the points they make are going to be, so what? Because if you remember in part 1, when we looked at the district judge's ruling, it was all based on, they didn't give you a download button. So what? And that's basically what they're going to say. YouTube users can enjoy streaming a wide range of content at no financial cost to them, typically after watching a short advertisement. In other words, they have access to it, but may not download copies of that content. Downloading is copying. So here it is, straight from the RIAA. This is about copying, not accessing. And if you watched part 1 and a lot of my coverage before on the AI cases, you'll know that it does make that distinction. The one that they're trying to use to cut off fair use is the paragraph that prohibits access controls. The paragraph that prohibits copy controls allows for copying when the use is fair. So here they're saying it's a copy control, which means that Yount is right, and they should now prevail in all of this. Yount set forth 9 pages that describe a convoluted multi-step process whereby someone supposedly can, in violation of YouTube's terms of service, download video and music files for copyrighted music on YouTube using a web browser. So what if it's convoluted? Who cares how many steps there are? You don't eliminate fair use just by making it more difficult. A copy control is something that makes it harder to copy. Making it really hard to copy doesn't mean it's not a copy control and all of a sudden is an access control. That doesn't make sense. You have access. They said that. They said that outright. That Yount's technology is used for circumvention is clear from its own allegations and judicially noticeable documents. Yount concedes that there is technology at play when an individual visits the YouTube website to watch a video. Yeah, there's technology. So what? What the law says is that there has to be a technological protection measure that effectively prevents access. Not that there's just technology involved somewhere. I mean, it's really debatable whether this technology effectively prevents copying, because it doesn't. You hit the F12 key, you copy a URL. You delete the range value and boom, you've got it. But even so, if that technology is a copy control, this does not apply, only if it's an access control. And that's what they need to show down here at the bottom of the page. Yount alleges how to identify this signature value. It is the numbers following the text range equals. Yount then alleges that this range must be modified to access and download the video and audio files. You just delete the variable and you get the whole thing. That's all you do. This is a URL and you just paste it in the address bar, take out the range variable, and you're just making an ordinary HTTP GET request and YouTube just gives it to you. That's not an access control. In other words, a user cannot download, i.e. copy, downloading means making a copy, a video on YouTube without bypassing the signature mechanism or rolling cipher. I'm not going to get started on that again. Y'all have heard me talk too much about that. By changing the YouTube assigned signature value. As Yount alleges, its users who download digital music files have no need to subscribe to premium streaming services. So what? Thus, when a user uses Yount to create an unauthorized download of a music recording, the user has no need to stream the video on YouTube, depriving copyright owners of the advertising revenue. See, here's the thing about it. Even if that were true, it would be YouTube who would need to sue, not you. If someone uses Yount to illegally download your music, you sue that person. You don't sue Yount. If Yount is violating YouTube's access protection methods, then it's YouTube who needs to sue Yount. But remember, we haven't heard anything from YouTube. Technology-wise, this doesn't even look like a copy control, let alone an access control. But we don't really know why it's there or what they intended with it. It could just be that they're just making the streaming part work so that you can watch it without having to download the whole thing, because most people who watch YouTube don't want to download the whole thing. They just want to watch it. They want it to queue up quickly, start watching it, and if there's congestion, drop the quality a bit. That's what all the JavaScript is doing. That's what that range variable is about. It's which little piece of that video you're downloading. All right, they spend a lot of time going over everything. Let's move over to page 43 because they were really nice to bullet point all of this for us. Here we have this is the entirety of their argument. Yount concedes that there is technology at play. Yeah, there's HTML, there's JavaScript, there's HTTP. Well, yeah, there's technology. So what? Yount's allegations also make it clear that YouTube employs a signature mechanism that derives a signature value before the music video can be streamed. It's not in any way a signature, but I'm not getting into that again. The signature mechanism controls or restrains users' ability to access, see, they're trying to make it the access control, to access the downloadable files for the music video, since the signature value has to be modified to access those files. So again, hit the F12 key, copy it in, delete the range variable, download it. That is an access restriction to them. And it's a restriction because you're watching the video, you're consuming the content in a way other than YouTube intended, which means that all sorts of things, even browser extensions, most browser extensions will be illegal if they had their way. I cover that in part 1. Watch that if you need more information. But that's it. That's the entirety of their argument. Everything else is support for it because they look at real networks, they look at Ramirez, they look at Corley. But that's it. That's their argument. All right, so that's the RIAA. Let's make sure we get all of their arguments through and we hear everything they have to say by looking at the Amicus brief from the Copyright Alliance in support of defendants appellees, that's the RIAA, and affirmants. So they're going to say, hey, the RIAA is right about everything, and we'll see what their arguments are starting over on page 20 of this 29-pager. So remember, it was Yount who made the original complaint. And Yount was going into court because like, look, we just need to get this figured out. We need a final answer over whether what we do is legal because we think it's perfectly legal, and that YouTube DL and YTDLP and all of those others are legal. So it's not the case where we get taken down and then put back up and taken down and put back up. That's no way to try to run a business. So court, we need an answer on this. The court dismissed their complaint and sided with the RIAA without any fact-finding whatsoever. And so they are saying, in dismissing the complaint, the district court properly rejected long discredited arguments. Did they though? Did they really? So they say, Yout's contrived attempt to show that YouTube users already have access to copyrighted works via a convoluted Rube Goldberg-like process actually refutes the lack of effectiveness argument. No, that's not what they said. That's not why they have access. They have access because they can watch the videos. You put in a typical URL, you can watch the video. That gives you access to it. Everything else, the Rube Goldberg-like process, is about copying the video, downloading it, copying it. That makes it a copy control, not an access control. So over on page 23, the position of Yout and EFF in this lawsuit is nothing more than another in a decades-long pattern of raising legally baseless court challenges to the DMCA. More specifically, Yout and its amici here assert that the district court's reading of Section 1201 prohibits Yout's users from using copyrighted works in a manner that qualifies as fair use under Section 107. EFF also argues that because the Yout service purportedly has substantial non-infringing uses, including so-called space shifting, i.e., they claim Yout has not violated Section 1201 because under Section 1201A2B, the service has more than a limited commercially significant purpose or use other than to circumvent a technological measure that effectively controls access to a copyrighted work. Yes, if you're doing it for fair use, if you're doing it for criticism or commentary, you're doing it for journalism, you're doing it for archiving purposes, you're doing it for all these things. And yes, doing it for AI training. Then it's fair use, and you're allowed to do that. They want to stop that. Remember that saying among lawyers that I've pointed out a few times in other videos? If the facts are against you, pound the law. If the law is against you, pound the facts. If the facts and the law are against you, pound the table. So listen to this next part and you tell me if it's pounding the table. These arguments merely rehash stale, erroneous arguments that courts have rejected for decades. In Corley, this court rejected the argument that the First Amendment or fair use provisions of the Copyright Act serve as defenses to trafficking in anti-circumvention devices. But if you remember, they did that by denying that computer code is free speech, which was the whole purpose of my computer code hoedown. I made that to demonstrate clearly that yes, computer code is a form of speech, and that got me kicked off of mp3.com. Thanks to Dan Bernstein for getting the Ninth Circuit to agree multiple times that yes, computer code is covered under free speech. Notice how they're not mentioning that aspect of it though. Yout also attempts to analogize its business model to Sony's Betamax obsolete videotape recorder. It's obsolete. The technology is obsolete. That means the law changes somehow. Because in Sony v. Universal, one of the things they said it could be used for under fair use was time shifting. You want to watch something, you're not home, you set a timer to record it, you watch it later. Time shifting constituted fair use in some circumstances, and that because the Betamax had substantial non-infringing uses, including time shifting, Sony was not liable for copyright infringement. And so by the same token, since Yout has substantial non-infringing uses, like journalism, like reaction videos, like all the other stuff I said, it should be allowed, under the same arguments. But they say, importantly, in Sony Betamax, the device manufacturer had no ongoing relationship with consumers. So what? What does that have to do with the price of eggs in China? The court emphasized that its opinion there would not control a case like this one, where Congress acted expressly to deal with technology like Yout's dream ripping service. Sound policy, as well as history, supports our consistent deference to Congress when major technological innovations alter the market for copyrighted materials. Congress has the constitutional authority and the institutional ability to accommodate fully the varied permutations of competing interests that are inevitably implicated by such new technology. But in the DMCA, Congress specifically allowed for fair use copying. A copy control, like what this is, you can use it if the ultimate use is fair. You can do it. They haven't said anything about that, have they? And believe me, I read through the whole things, not just the portion I'm reading to you. Read through the whole things if you don't believe me. In the final analysis, Yout and its amici seem to argue that copyright owners lose Section 1201's protections simply because their copyrighted works on YouTube or any other similar online service are not behind a password-protected paywall. It's because they have access to the videos, because they're publicly available. That's why it's not an access control, because you just give everyone access. You upload something to YouTube. I upload this video to YouTube. I make it public. You all have access. That's what access means. You want to stop downloading, you're talking about copying, not accessing. Yout's illegal stream-ripping software is a significant threat to copyright holders and ultimately the public. Pound the table, pound the table, pound the table! God, I'm surprised they didn't get a think of the children in there at the rate they're going. If this court adopts the arguments of Yout and its amici, protection for numerous business models will be devastated, resulting in less, not more, public access to copyrighted works. Again, even if true, so what? Copyrights are not about supporting your business model. They're about promoting the progress of science and useful arts. And are you really promoting it? Or are you trying to stop others who are promoting it? I think it's clear myself, and I think even after reading these, it's as clear as day. But if you need more convincing, stick around for part 3, because we got a couple other things to look at. We've got Yout's reply brief to all of this, and then we have the Amicus brief from Suno and Udio, and that'll kind of get you caught up with all of this. So we'll cover that. Stick around for part 3 and subscribe to make sure that you know when it's posted. You might have to hit the bell too, because YouTube isn't always showing videos to its subscribers. So do all of that. Please comment, like the video, and above all, share it, because that's how you break above the shadow banning. And of course, donate.pagosity.tv keeps me doing what I do. So please check all of that out, one-time donations or regular support. Thank you so very much for watching. Until next time, stay strong and be free.